when a whole bunch of opportunities of wonderful things come at you.
Like they always do.
You always are going to have more opportunities than you have time. And so you're either going to get crushed by that, or you're going to get your ducks in a row and say, okay, this, and then this, and not that.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Christy Wright Show, where faith meets personal development so you can have a bigger faith and a better life. I'm so excited because today we are talking about something I love to talk about, life balance. I love to talk about it because we struggle with it a lot. And I have an exciting announcement for you today, which I cannot wait to get to. And then later on in the show, we're gonna sit down with the man himself, Dave Ramsey. If you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, you must be living in a cave. Let me help you. He is a multiple national best-selling author, national radio show host, leader of our amazing company, Ramsey Solutions. And we're going to talk to him about what he thinks about life balance. And let me tell you, he's got some thoughts on it. But first, let's talk about what life balance is not. Now, this is something, y'all, I have been talking about, teaching, researching, living out in my own crazy life with 3 kids under age 6 for the last decade. And as I've dug into this topic, here's one of the things I have realized. We don't know what life balance is. We can't pin it down. We can't define it. We're like, I don't know what it is. I feel out of balance. I just feel like I can't get it together. I just feel like things are off. I can't balance it all. Juggling balls, spinning plates, walking a tightrope. We've got all the analogies and we still can't figure it out. Do you feel like that? Like we don't know what life balance is. We just know we don't have it. Can you relate? We don't know what the definition is. We're just sure we can't achieve it. Well, sometimes figuring out what something is found by identifying what it's not. So that's why today I want to walk you through 5 different things that life balance is not. I want to help you filter and sift and sort and discern what this means for your life so you understand if you're experiencing these 5 things, it doesn't necessarily mean your whole life is out of balance. I want to give you 5 things that life balance is not, and then we will end with what I believe life balance is. First, life balance does not mean that you're never tired. Can we just go ahead and acknowledge this? Like, if you have little kids, you're tired all the time because they are exhausting. They are so physical, from car seats to baths to putting on jammies to reading books to just wrangling them through the aisles of Target. They're exhausting. Of course you're tired. Maybe you're in a season of life that is physically exhausting. Maybe you've decided that in this season, you're gonna train for a marathon. Okay, newsflash. Of course you're freaking tired. You're running miles and miles and miles. It doesn't mean that your whole life is out of balance. So I want to first give you permission. I want to give you a freeing message to know that just because you're tired doesn't mean your whole life is out of balance. It might. You might use that as a clue and an indicator like, hey, I've been tired for a decade, something's off. Yeah, okay. Maybe we need to dig into that. But maybe you just need a nap. Maybe you just need to go to your room earlier at night and go to bed earlier and get more hours of sleep. Eat better food that gives you energy. You might just need sleep. So if you're feeling tired, I want to encourage you. Just because you're tired doesn't mean your whole life is out of balance. All right, number 2. Balance does not mean you're never stressed. Sometimes when we feel stressed, whether from our kids or a big decision or a work project or just something going on in our lives, we can confuse stress with being out of balance. That tension we feel, struggling to go to sleep at night, feeling anxiety in our chest, our mind is running, that stress can make us feel like we're out of balance. It can make us question everything. My schedule's wrong. My life is wrong. I'm not spending my time the right way. I'm not doing things right. I'm failing. We tend to snowball. Our mind runs off a cliff and we assume because we're stressed, everything is wrong. Maybe not. Maybe you're just stressed. Maybe you are under a crazy deadline at work, and that's hard. If you're an accountant, I would be willing to bet that in the spring, you are stressed. And by the way, probably tired. You're probably working all the time because that is tax season. That doesn't mean your whole life is out of balance, y'all. It means you're in a season where you're experiencing some stress. When we can separate these feelings, when we can identify what's going on and why it's happening, it helps us from letting our mind run away with us. It keeps us from letting everything snowball into this doomsday scenario where our whole life is out of balance and everything is wrong and I need to run out and quit my accounting job. No, it's just a season where you are experiencing some stress. It's just a week or a day or a decision or a situation where you are experiencing stress. That's okay. Now, if you've been experiencing stress for a decade, similar to number one, you've been tired for a decade, that could be a clue that something is off that needs to be fixed. You've been unhappy in your job for a decade. Okay, yeah, sure. It is time to consider doing something different. But if you're just having a hard day or a tough week or a tough few months and season in your life and you're stressed, it might just mean you're stressed. It doesn't necessarily mean that your whole life is out of balance. It might just mean you're going through a stressful situation. All right, number three, similar to number one, being tired, and similar to number two, being stressed, number three, balance does not mean you never get overwhelmed. Think about this word overwhelm. Like, I say this a lot. I feel overwhelmed. My to-do list is overwhelming, whatever. You say this all the time. I know you do because I hear it all the time. I hear it from my academy members in coaching sessions. I hear it from you guys on social media. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so overwhelmed. Okay. There might be a situation that is overwhelming to you. There is a day where your schedule is so packed, it feels overwhelming. There is a day or a week where your to-do list, man, everything is hitting at the same time, and that's overwhelming. I'll be totally honest with you guys. This week is that for me. Last week, I was on vacation with my family, and this week, it feels like catch-up week. I've got all the doctor's appointments, all the hair appointments for my kids. I've got to get my kids to camp. I've got all the school things going on, preparing for the fall. Everything feels like it's hitting this week. My to-do list is overwhelming. You know what? That's okay. Being overwhelmed doesn't mean your whole life is out of balance. Being overwhelmed doesn't mean everything is wrong in your world. It just means you got a lot going on. Okay, handle it. You can handle that. You can cut some things off. You can push some things off. You can get help. You can figure out how to get through that thing that's overwhelming. But just because you're having an overwhelming day or you're having an overwhelming week doesn't mean your whole life is out of balance. It might just mean everything is hitting at once, you're dealing with something you've never dealt with before, and you're feeling a little overwhelmed. When you can separate this feeling of being overwhelmed, it helps you have peace and understanding that this is a thing you're gonna get through. It doesn't mean you have to change your entire world because everything is out of balance. So number one, balance does not mean you're never tired. Number two, balance does not mean you're never stressed. Number three, balance does not mean you're never overwhelmed. And number four, balance does not mean you're not busy. See, I think we tend to think in these extremes, right? Like if I'm feeling balance, I am in meditation mode and I am breathing deeply and completely calm at all times with very few things going on. And I speak in a sing-song voice and I have margin in my schedule. Not necessarily. You can be busy and balanced. You can have a full schedule and feel peace. You can have a lot of good things going on and feel like things are right in your world. So don't put the pressure on yourself that you have to completely clear your plate to have balance. That's not true. I know a lot of people, and I would say that I'm one of them, that are very busy and very balanced. It's not about how few things that you can do. It's about how many of the right things that you can do. Because you can do few things and feel out of balance. And you can have a lot going on and feel balance. Balance is not necessarily the amount of things that you do. So don't put pressure on yourself that you have to cancel all your commitments, walk out on all your responsibilities, and completely clear your calendar like it's 2020 pandemic. You don't. Balance does not mean you're not busy. So don't put that pressure on yourself. Balance is not about busyness. It's not about too many things. It's about the right things. And number 5, lastly, balance does not mean you do everything for an equal amount of time. And guys, no matter how many times I say this, you still seem to think that it does. You still put pressure on yourself to have a perfect quiet time every single morning. And by the way, work out every single morning and have a perfect amount of hours in a perfect day at your job or your business every single day. And spend a perfect amount of time with your children who act perfectly, by the way, every single evening. And then you also have perfectly wonderful communication and quality time with your spouse. And also, by the way, your house is perfectly clean and all of your meals are homemade. Perfectly. Now, you know that's not possible. But no matter how many times I say it, no matter how many times you hear it, you still have that pressure on yourself. You have this idea that life balance is perfection. You have this idea that life balance is equality. It's spending an equal amount of time on every single area of your life every single day. That's not just unrealistic, it's undesirable. Take the pressure off. You don't have to do everything for an equal amount of time. In fact, you can do that and still feel out of balance. And by the way, you can do that and you'll never have focus. You'll never be able to actually dedicate your attention to one area because you're trying to split your attention and do everything equally. It's not realistic. It's not desirable. And it doesn't even lead to balance. So let's get this idea out of our head that life balance is doing everything for an equal amount of time, because it's not. Which brings me to the true definition of life balance that I have experienced in my own life and identified, and I want to share with you. Life balance is not doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's about doing the right things at the right time. When you do the right things at the right time, you will feel that sense of balance that you have been looking for all along. It won't be perfect. Won't always be easy. Doesn't mean you never get tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. Doesn't mean you're not busy. But it does mean that you feel a sense of peace about how you spend your time, and you're proud of how you spend your time. Life balance is doing the right things at the right time. And guess what? What's right for you is different than what's right for someone else. And what's right today is different than what was right for you 6 months ago and what will be right for you in a year. That can change. It will. It should. But I want to help you chase your version of life balance, what that looks like for you and what it means to you. Because by the way, this is your life. That's the only version of life balance that should matter anyway. And by the way, I told you guys I have an exciting announcement. Y'all, I have been working on this, living this, dreaming about this, praying about this, and talking about this a little bit on social media for months and years, over a decade. I am so excited to tell you that my new book on life balance is here, y'all. Oh, I have a copy. I'm so excited to show you. This is it. Take Back Your Time, the guilt-free guide to life balance. Because I believe that life balance isn't just a schedule issue. I believe it's a heart issue. And I want to help you shake the guilt that's been nagging at you for years so that you can be set free to spend your time in your one life on what you actually care about. And just yesterday, it launched for pre-sale. You can get your copy by going to ChristyWright.com. When you order your copy in pre-sale until it launches on September 14th, you get tons of free bonus items, including an event, a very special event with me and some guests in September. And y'all, this is how you do it. How do you spend your life on the right things at the right time? That's exactly what I unpack in this book, and I can't wait to see how it's going to help you. So get your copy of Take Back Your Time, the guilt-free guide to life balance at ChristyWright.com. christywright.com.
We were drawn to Christian healthcare ministries because we both had young families and we wanted to have more children. And we had also just started a real estate company and needed to find healthcare coverage that would meet our needs. We were attracted to CHM because of its low monthly costs and the ability to negotiate medical costs down.
Established in 1981 and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, CHM is here to meet the needs of your growing family or small business. Check us out at chministries.org.
We absolutely believe in it.
All right, y'all, I'm so excited because I get to sit down with the man himself and the leader of Ramsey Solutions. You know him as a nationally syndicated radio show host, New York Times bestselling author. I know you as a leader and a friend, Dave Ramsey. Dave, thanks for being here.
I'm honored. I'm
This is
so
the first
excited
time.
for you. This
I
is
know.
a great day.
This is the first time you've been down, I think, on this side. You've been on Rachel's side over on her show, but we were thinking about kicking off the launch of the pre-sale of the new book, Take Back Your Time. We're like, we have to have Dave. We have to have Dave. And, you know, I'm so excited. I was just reading a couple weeks ago the foreword that you wrote for this book. And it's funny because it takes me back to those initial conversations about this subject of life balance. And we know it's a pain point in our culture because people ask me about it. They ask you about it, and they have for years. And you've got some feelings on it. And you've had some feelings. Talk a little bit about maybe the kind of the backstory of your thoughts on this topic and maybe even that specific wording, you know, life balance and what that means.
What has bothered me, I think, most is from a leadership perspective, or even sometimes when I was coaching someone on money or they would call in on the radio show, I want life balance was too often code for, I don't really want to work.
That's the deeper issue going on. Yeah.
I just really don't want to work, and so I'm going to blame this on my laziness on this noble thing of nurturing the children and taking care of self and all of this crap that you do need to do, obviously.
Right.
But the way it's couched oftentimes is it's code for I don't want to work so much.
Yeah.
And sometimes my Christian brothers and sisters will do that. Sometimes when they say prayer, they mean prayer. And sometimes they say, I'm going to pray about this, or I'm praying about this. What that means is they can't make up their mind.
Right, they can't make a decision.
Or they're just, they don't work much. They don't want to go be a person of action.
Yeah.
And this whole thing of balance sometimes is used as a cloak over some dysfunction. The actual idea of having an overall balanced life is a good idea.
Right.
But I recoil against this because it's so often when someone brings this up, or I've heard speakers and people speak on the subject, and they get it so wrong that you leave there going, who could do that?
Right.
No, real humans can't do that.
Yeah. Well, and it's so perpendicular to what you teach in the money space, but also what we know is a principle for life, which is to make progress in any of your life, you need to focus there. If you're training for a marathon, you're going to run a lot more than you normally would run. If you're getting out of debt, you're going to be gazelle intense for a season. So that's not balanced. But I think that one of the things that we've seen is, to your point, there's a lot of mixed up ideas about balance and what that word means and what it represents. And I know, for you have the extreme of people calling in and they're like, I just don't want to work. You also have the extreme of people work themselves into the ground and they don't have a life. And as a value here at Ramsey Solutions, we say we value family. And I've heard you do some talks on this, and you have such a great perspective of if you work all the time for years and years and years and years and you don't have a family, like that's not a good life. And if you don't work at all, that's not a good life. So over the course of your life, as there's an ebb and flow to it, I feel like you talk a little bit about that because that's one of our core values, but it's not as the culture would define it of everything is perfect all the time.
Exactly. Our money principle, the idea of being gazelle intense, live like no one else so that later you can live and give like no one else. So for 18 to 24 months, don't go to a restaurant, don't go on vacation, take extra jobs, sell so much stuff the kids think they're next, sacrifice so that for the rest of your life, you don't have this burden of debt on you.
Yeah.
And 90-something% of our followers that get out of debt do it in 18 to 24 months, not counting their mortgage.
Yeah.
But you would think that I had signed someone up to go to some kind of prison camp or something for 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh, Dave Ramsey doesn't want anybody to have any fun. Dave Ramsey doesn't want... And I believe in balance. No, you believe in not getting stuff done.
Not being disciplined, yeah.
And not being willing to pay a price for a short period of time so that over the scope of your life you achieve balance.
Yeah.
And instead you're captive to these thoughts.
Yeah. When we were at Entree Leadership Summit recently, a few months ago, I was talking to some of the attendees, and I know a lot of business leaders struggle with this in a unique way because the weight of the world is on their shoulders with the business. But I talked to one woman, and it was at one of the evening receptions, and she had so much guilt around the subject. And I think that's one of the things, that's what I love about the subtitle of the book, The Guilt-Free Guide to Life Balance, because whether you are a hard-driving entrepreneur or you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever you do, there seems to be an undercurrent of guilt that we're not getting it right. Talk a little bit about how you've seen that, because I know with business leaders, like there's a lot of people that just feel guilty, and you're going, hey, you get to define your version of balance. It's going to look different in every season. Talk a little bit about that guilt.
Well, I think there's two categories there. One is just shame because you're not getting it right.
Yeah.
And
you should change something.
For 5 years, you've been working 80 hours and you haven't seen your kids.
Yeah.
That's not getting it right.
Right.
Okay? And so that's conviction.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then the other is just this vague sense of I'm never enough.
Yeah.
And no matter what I do. And I think the antidote, and you and I, you've done such a beautiful job of teaching on this, the antidote is that it's for a season. You know, when we go, back in the day, I used to do book tours, and we would launch a book, like we're doing now. But, and we would go city to city to city and do all these book signings. There was these things called bookstores.
Yeah.
And, but I would be gone for 30 days from my family. And they knew that was coming. We talked about it. We set it up. And then when Dad came home, we would go and do something like a Disney trip or whatever, something to celebrate the fact that we were back home. And I would unplug from that. But I'm all in on this, and then I'm all in on that. It's for a season.
Yeah.
And that will release you from this vague sense of guilt. And it'll also instruct you if the season's too long and it's convicting you that you need to change, then you need to say, okay, this season's gone too long.
Yeah.
And I've got to adjust something at this business. This business is now eating me alive.
Yeah. I love how you talk about this vague sense of something being wrong, because it does feel like there's this almost like shadow that kind of haunts people. And, I talked about this at Summit, but I think that one of the struggles with this idea of life balance is we never define it. We just know we don't have it, right? So that guilt is always haunting us that we're not getting it right, even if we are, even if we're doing the right things at the right time.
It's almost as if the culture's looking over our shoulder, giving us an eye roll.
Right.
Yeah, there's another one.
Right. Exactly.
There's plenty of folk out there that'll tell you you're getting it wrong, and these are people who don't do anything.
Yeah. Who don't get a say. I just posted something on social media last week, and for the most part, people, are usually nice, but it was something that I'm doing, and she literally posted back. It was like, "Your poor children, your poor husband. You should be scared. You should." And I was like, it's like that type of thing. You're going, if someone was shaky in their decision making already, you got social media with everybody with a megaphone and opinion to tell you you're getting it wrong. So one of the things that I loved helping people do in this book and in my Summit talk is actually defining life balance in a new way, redefining, and saying it's not a 50-50 split. That's not realistic or attainable. It's not doing everything for an equal amount of time. That's not realistic or attainable. But when you do the right things at the right time, even if you're busy, you can feel a sense of balance because you're focusing your time and energy on what's right now. And guess what? What's right now will change in different seasons or different weeks or so on. So talk a little bit about, and we talked about this online and offline, but what if the question is not, how do I balance it all? Balance is a verb. But what if balance is something you can create more of a sense of peace, more of a sense of confidence of I'm spending my time on the right things. And then when I do that, I feel balanced. Have you felt that in your life, that when you're focusing on the right things, whether that's being at the lake or being on book tour or all the million things that you do you feel that sense of peace and confidence that even if your world's busy, you feel that?
That is the beauty of this material that you've written, is that you really are not going to, there's really no middle ground. When a whole bunch of opportunities of wonderful things come at you.
Like they always do.
And and the better you get at things, the more it's going to come.
Yes.
The better the older you get, the more respected you are, the more it's going to come. The more you grow your career, the more it's going to come. The more kids you have, the more it's going to come. Then you got grandkids, and more is going to come. And so it doesn't stop coming at you. You always are going to have more opportunities than you have time. And so you're either going to get crushed by that and live in this constant state of guilt, or you're going to get your ducks in a row and say, okay, this, and then this, and not that, and then this, and not that, and you're going to get a priority. So, I talked about book tour, and we were in the early days of this business. We were busy. I was the only speaker, and we're out on the road, and we're doing 30, 40 events a year. And so that's not that much compared to someone like in a rock band. They're gone all the time or something. But we were gone a lot. And so we ended up, I said, okay, we've got to, our kids are moving into teenage years. The girls are cheerleaders. I'm going to be here for the game. Daniel's playing ice hockey. I'm going to be the coach. So I'm going to get the schedule, the hockey schedule, and we're going to build the events around it. And we're going to get the prom dates. I didn't miss a single prom. And so I was completely there. And people go, I don't understand how you do it. You're so busy. And it's just simple. This is important, most important. And then that's next most important. So we're going to put it there. And we're going to arrange around it to where then you just go, I'm doing the most important things at any given moment that I could possibly be doing. And the rest of it was no.
Yes.
It enables you to say no.
Yeah.
And it enables you to not feel guilty.
Yeah.
And it's powerful material you put together.
Thank you. I'm curious, even as you talk about that, has that ever been hard for you, or like the prioritizing? Because here's what I've seen, Dave. A lot of people, and I will say as a generalization, a lot of women treat everything as if it's important. And so it's like, I got to do this, and it's all created equal. It's like, no, what's most important? They're like, I don't know. Patrick Lencioni says, if everything's important, nothing is. Is that prioritizing? Has that always been easy? Has it been hard?
No, it's gotten easier.
Okay.
Saying no is the key.
Yeah.
I think
you're good at that.
That completely sets you free.
Yeah.
And the more of that you do, it's a muscle you build. And
Yes.
you just go, hey, no.
Yeah.
You just get really good at it,
You're like, I'm allowed to do this? Okay.
I am not doing that. Yeah. I love you.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
And so, that's a big thing. Early on, when you first start building this muscle, regardless, male, female, whatever it is, all of us want to be liked.
Yeah.
And so inside of all of us, we're all, me too, people pleasers. I don't want somebody to be mad at me. Yeah. Dave Ramsey's snob, he wouldn't do this, right? Dave Ramsey, he didn't have time for me. He's too cool. You don't want people saying, nobody wants to hear that.
You don't want to be misunderstood.
I don't want to, and you're going to be.
Right.
You're going to be. And so you get to choose who misunderstands you. Some guy over there that's, or your own kid.
Yeah.
Your own spouse.
Yeah.
Or the people you work closest with that you've made a promise to honor and to get your work done.
Yeah.
And you can't because some goob over there in the fringes has an opinion and you're worried about his opinion. And so this need to please drives us to put too much on our plate.
Yeah.
It's affirmation need. And we all have it.
Yeah.
No one doesn't.
Yeah.
But the good news is you can build the muscle.
Yeah.
And because you start to go, I am so happy that some preacher somewhere that wanted me to speak at his church is upset with me instead of my daughter for missing her prom.
Yeah.
Good choice, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I get to choose who's upset.
Yeah.
And, Rachel Cruz for the rest of her life because her dad wasn't there, because I went to some church and with 35 people because some guy had an attitude if I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Make a good choice.
I love that reminder because so often we focus on the no and how we're letting people down. But if we could focus on the yes, that no allows me to say yes over here. And like you said, it sets you free.
And the weird thing is you end up really, really busy doing all the exact correct things and you're not tired.
Yeah.
And you're not guilty.
Yep.
And you're fulfilled. And you're highly efficient too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people have this idea that if you're balanced or balancing it all, however they talk about it, that like you meditate all day, you pray, you have all this much. I'm like, no, you can be crazy busy, but feel that sense of balance because you're not doing everything. You're not doing the wrong things. You're not doing these things that person over in Nebraska wants you to come to. You're doing the right things. And that is energy giving. That is life giving as you spend those times on the right things. I think one of the challenge I've seen a lot of, and I definitely experience this, is not just the people pleasing. And I talk about this in the book, like the need to I want to be liked. I want people to think I'm a good mom. I want, whatever that is. But also when you have a lot of interests, it was like you said a minute ago, a lot of good things are coming at you. There's a lot of opportunities. There's always going to be more than we have time for. And if you're interested in a lot of things, it's that much more to prioritize still, even though we got 25 good things. What are the 3 best things? What are the most important things? And that can be hard in our world where there's a million things coming at us.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, my calendar is 15-minute blocks full.
Forever.
From the day out for months.
Yeah.
Which is fine. because I feel the freedom to move it
Yeah.
if I want to,
Right.
if I need to. I'm not going to disrespect somebody, but I had a guy who had been trying to meet with me for a long time, and I wanted to meet with the guy. And he, finally it's coming up, and a friend of mine passed away.
Mm.
And so I cleared my calendar and went to the funeral.
Yeah.
And, that poor guy, in a sense, but, I'm not, how much guilt do I feel about that?
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. I made the right, And so even though everything was full, I could still change it.
That's right.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Because guess what? I'm in charge of me.
Yeah.
It's such a neat thing.
We talk about when I walk through priorities in the book, I talk about the different types of priorities. I think people tend to think of priorities as this like in concrete thing, God, other, self, and I was like, that's a nice Sunday school answer. That's not practical for real life because in your example, you had a week plan and here are the priorities. Your friend passed away.
The guy was an important guy.
Right, yeah. But something changes and your priorities change. So it's like what your priorities look like in a season or in a week or even in a given day can change based on what's going on in your world. And it should. And it should. If you're going to do the right things at the right time, you need to know what those right things are as they change. Dave, I love talking about this because you and I have had so many fun conversations about it. We've been on the road at EntreLeadership events. You've spoken at Business Boutique. We have heard people ask about this forever. And
It's an ongoing need.
Yes. Especially the busier our world gets and the more demand from social media and technology.
Well, and I think the more dysfunctional
Yeah.
the world gets, the more the toxic culture decides it's going to shame you for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or anything.
Yeah.
And so you've really got to get some principles around your brain to not go crazy on some of these subjects, and this is one of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful that you and the team and everybody are supporting this book. Tell me a little bit about what you hope this book does for people. You've read it. We talked on stage at Summit about this, but it's been cool. This is, I've been here 12 years this fall. I have been living this content for over a decade, and you've been with me on this journey. So I'm so grateful to get to be on it with you. But I'd love for people to hear from you what you hope for people from this book.
I think if you're doing the right things with your life, you're spending your time on the things that matter the most. That's your definition of balance. That you're not only going to have the most fulfillment, the most joy, but you're also going to have the most excellence and efficiency. And so prosperity is tied into this. Prospering is tied into this. And so I always think when I think about something like that's that important, that I visited my great-grandfather, who was a circuit riding preacher's gravesite, and it's got the 2 dates. And I've got all this history on all the things he did. He was a circuit rider. I mean, all these people he led to the Lord. He was an evangelist after the Civil War. He was my great-great-grandfather, my grandmother's grandfather. And there's 2 numbers on there. And then there's that thing in the middle, that dash. And the old motivational speaker always said, what are you going to do with your dash? And this book is the kind of thing that helps you do well with the dash.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, Dave, thank you. Thanks so much for supporting the book. Thanks for being here. Thanks for just all of your mentorship that has led to this content and this project. I've learned so much from you and Sharon and how y'all lead the company, but also in your marriage. And I know people love hearing from you. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for your time. All right, y'all, I have some exciting news for those of you that have a business or want one. How do you use social media to actually build your business? Well, I'm so excited to tell you about a new partner called Comment Sold. They help you streamline the entire process of someone commenting on one of your posts, and they help you turn that fan into a customer seamlessly. You can get started with a free 30-day trial by going to commentsold.com/Christy Wright. When you do, you get a free ring light while supplies last, because y'all know we love some good lighting for our selfies. So go to commentsold.com/Christy Wright to get started. All right, y'all, now we are going to answer some of your questions that you sent in. And as always, I have not seen them, which I get pretty excited about because I don't even know what you're going to ask. So let's see what we got today. All right, first question. How to manage going back to school, maybe long term, with a young family, kids 3 and 1. Well, let's just talk about it. I'll go ahead and share something with you that I'm not shared. So let me think through this, okay? Am I ready for this? I don't know. We'll just edit it out if not. I'm doing the same thing. So I have felt called to go to seminary, and I started a few weeks ago. And it has been scary, but here's what I have done, and maybe this will be an encouragement to you. I have set expectations for myself that are realistic. So when you say going to school long-term, you didn't necessarily say full-time. So if possible, I would recommend not going full-time unless you're able to dedicate full-time hours to that. I can't. Not with a full-time job, not with 3 kids under age 6 and have any source of sanity. So for me, I'm taking one class at a time. What does that look like for you? When you look at your calendar and you look at your responsibilities, whether that is a job or how much time you spend with your kids, if you take care of your kids during the day with young kids, if you are the primary caretaker during the day, they're not in preschool and so on, then you need to think through what hours will I work on the schoolwork. Another thing you can do is look into how many hours a class takes. So I looked into that. Each class takes about 15 hours. So I have blocked out on my schedule when I will dedicate these 15 hours for one class at a time for me to attend. Now, for you, it might look different if you have more time or have different hours in your schedule, but I would just set very realistic, achievable expectations and block it on your calendar. Because the idea of going back to school seems overwhelming to you. It definitely did to me. The whole idea seemed ludicrous. And by the way, for any of you worried that I'm going to go leave what I'm doing and work at a church and completely change my life plans, I'm not. I just, for some reason, feel God asking me to take classes in seminary to understand the Bible better. I'm curious, so I'm following that prompting. For you, maybe you're pursuing a degree to do something and you've got a certain deadline. Well, your plan needs to reflect that. And so when you put this on paper, on calendar, on purpose, and say, here's how many hours I can do at a time, here's where those hours will go, here's the help I need to align in order to make it happen, takes the overwhelm out of it. You know, it's so interesting, whether it's about school or anything for that matter, things feel overwhelming when we can't see them. It's the unknown, right? Like it haunts you and chases you of like, how will you do it? It feels so big and scary, but you write it down like, oh, well, this is how I do it. It's kind of like running a marathon. The idea of running 13.1 miles for a half marathon or 26.2 miles for a full marathon seems insane. Like that seems so overwhelming. But when you download a training plan off of the internet and you see, wow, all I have to do that first week is 3 miles and I do that already, and then I build to 4 miles and 5 miles, when you can see it on paper, on purpose, you're like, yeah, I can see how this is possible. The same is true with going back to school. The same is true with any goal or major change or focus in your life. You just need to put it on paper and see how it's possible. When you create a plan and you can see how it's possible, you know you can do it and it takes the overwhelm out of it. But congratulations, I'm super excited for you and I hope this helps. All right, next question. Let's see here. Should a person grow a business while they are in a nasty custody court battle? Well, this is a very personal, very intense question. So let me just have a minute, okay? Hang on. Even by the words that you used, nasty custody court battle, here's what I would say. That is taking all of your emotional energy, all of it. I've never been in that situation, but I would imagine that every thought you have is going towards that. I've actually known some people that have gone through that recently, and every ounce of emotional energy goes to that. Every free minute is thinking through all of their paperwork and researching and all of the case that they want to make for themselves, how they want to defend themselves, every minute goes to that. So when you say, should you grow a business, I don't think it's a matter of should you. I think it's a matter of you can't. You can't. Not and keep any ounce of sanity. Now, if you have a business, I don't know all the details of this question. There's a lot of follow-up questions I have. If I were sitting down with you, I would ask them. But if you have a business that, let's say, is well-established, and you have an amazing leadership team, an amazing team that you could kind of check out for these months, and your management team or your leadership team can run this thing and maintain it during the season, I'm not saying you need to close the doors. You might have a team that can step in for you while you are absent focusing on this custody battle. But if not, if it's just you, if you're a solopreneur and you're trying to grow something, no. I rarely give you guys absolutes of like definitely yes or definitely no, but I'm gonna do that today. I'm gonna say no. I think it's unwise. I think it sets you up to fail at worst and be miserable at best. And so I would say no. I would say focus on one thing at a time. Give yourself permission to be present and get through this traumatic event that you are going through, which, by the way, any of you going through any type of traumatic event, whether it is a divorce or a health issue or something major that needs your attention with your children, give yourself permission to focus on that thing. Now, if you want to work on your business and dabble in it almost like as an outlet to relieve your stress because it brings you joy and gives you something to think about, fine. But don't let it become something that's added pressure. You got enough pressure. You have maxed out your threshold for pressure from the thing that you're going through. Don't let this business be another source of pressure. You do what you need to do to survive and get by through this season. And when you are through this and you are on the other side, then you can switch your focus and look at that next thing, whether that's a business or a different goal. And I'm so sorry you're going through that. I've known people to go through that. And it's heartbreaking and hell. And it's going to take every ounce of energy that you have. And I'll be praying for you. Whew. Sometimes you guys get me. See, I don't know what these are. And then I just got to, we're on camera. So I just got to, my chest is so tight. Okay, okay. Next question. This one is a great one because this is like an underhanded pitch for me. So it's like I'm excited just as I just skimmed it. How do you prioritize if everything is important? Okay. You can't. You don't. You won't. You don't even make any sense with your question because everything is not important. Like these are opposites. Prioritizing is a hierarchy by importance, and you're saying everything is important. So if you believe and treat everything as important, then you cannot prioritize because you're saying that this is an impossible situation. But I would challenge everything is not important. Everything is not equally important. Patrick Lencioni said, if everything's important, nothing is. So ask yourself, be really, really tough on yourself and honest with yourself and say, if push comes to shove, what makes the cut? What really matters? And I will encourage you, let me dive into a little bit of teaching on prioritization here because I talked about how my book launched yesterday. And so I actually dive into this in the book, but I want to give you guys a quick overview. When it comes to priorities, we tend to think of priorities as this fixed list. God, others, family, self, in that order. Okay, that's great. That's a great Sunday school answer. It's very impractical for real lifetime management. Those might be your fixed priorities that when push comes to shove, what comes first? When push comes to shove, God is first. Cool. When push comes to shove, family before myself. Okay, great, cool. Most days are not push come to shove. Most days are more fluid, more flexible, and your priorities shift. So in a particular season, you might have priorities like, man, this is a tough season at work. I used the example earlier of an accountant in the spring. An accountant was working all the time in the spring. That's the priority for that season. Doesn't mean they don't love their kids. It just means in that season, kids are not getting as much time as they normally would in that season. Work is first. So work would actually move up in that season. You'll have priorities for a particular week. Let's say in a week in the spring, this accountant goes on vacation. Work moves to the bottom of the list for that week. Playing on the beach with their kids is the priority. They're not checking email. They're not doing anything for that week. On a given day, their child gets stung by a jellyfish. Their child jumps off the diving board, hits their head on the bottom of the pool. They're rushed to the emergency. What's the focus that week? Not being on the beach, going to the emergency room. Child and the health moved up. In a season, in a week, in a day, your priorities will shift and ebb and flow depending on what is most important to you in that day, in that moment, in that season. So don't put pressure on yourself to have this priority list saying, if work is really important to me today, I hate my kids. That's just not true. We're gonna look at prioritization from a more practical standpoint where you look at any given day or week or season and say, what is most important right now? And that's what my priority list looks like. This is exactly what I do, y'all. So for example, this summer, I have been very focused on my kids. I've gone to the beach, we go to the playground, we go to the lake. I leave early to pick them up from camp. I leave early on Fridays. I don't work a ton over. I never work in the nights or on the weekends. I'm spending a lot of time with my family because my priority this summer is playing, My kids are first, not just in theory, but also practically on my calendar and just having fun. That's my priority list this summer. But I am right in the middle of switching gears because I'm right in the middle of going into book season. I am having interview after interview. We've got an event coming up in September I told you guys about. I have speaking events back to back to back to back this fall. I'm gonna be traveling, I'm gonna be on the road. I'm not gonna see my kids near as much this fall. I'm gonna work nights, weekends. I'm gonna really bust it because my focus for this fall is getting this book out in the world to help as many people as possible. Does it mean I don't love my kids? Of course not. It just means that my life, my season, my week, and even every individual day reflects the priorities of what's most important that day. So a very practical thing you can ask yourself, and this is for any of you, by the way, ask yourself, what is right now? What is right now? What is right now? For me, to be with you on this set that sort of looks like my living room, but a whole lot cleaner, and shooting the Christy Wright Show for you. That's what's right now. This evening when I go home, what's right now? I'm probably gonna take my kids to the playground. We love doing that after dinner. What's right now? That will help you understand what is most important in any given moment, any given day, any given week, any given season, and give yourself permission to focus on what matters most at that time. I hope that helps you. I hope it takes the pressure off that everything doesn't have to be important. And oh, by the way, you don't have to come up with a priority list that's fixed and concrete forever that you have to live by. It's a little bit more practical than that, and that is one of the things I actually dive into in my book, so I would love to share that with you. You guys are so fun. Thank you for sending in your questions. Thanks for hanging out with me. And of course, you can tune in next week for another new episode of The Christy Wright Show. For more encouragement on becoming the person you want to be, you can visit ChristyWright.com.